The public has this idea that CG is bad because of stuff like Scorpion King, which is 20 years old now. And people don't really understand that CG has moved on so much that they don't even know what the f they're talking about. They didn't even know that there's CG anymore. They've actually think the film is real, but it's not. And I feel like the studios are not helping. I don't know, man. I don't have any beef with anyone, but I'm kind of like, this kind of really triggers me, but I'm going to shut up now. I'm not going to say anything more. Welcome to the VFX Notes podcast. Today's episode is sponsored by Action VFX and ftrack. Action VFX has the best library of VFX stock footage, with over 5,500 high-quality elements. They are the best stock footage I ever come across, and I highly recommend them. And the new free for subscribers features allows you to instantly unlock over 1,000 free bonus assets for only $29 a month. Sign up at actionvfx.com today and start downloading. This podcast is also sponsored by ftrack. ftrack Review is the all-in-one collaborative workspace where you and your team can give and receive interactive feedback on projects in real time. Forget endless email threads, comments on the wrong version, or constant video calls. ftrack Review replaces all of that with a seamless back and forth. Simply add your media, share your link, and you and your teammates and clients can review from anywhere in the world in real-time, frame-accurate sync. You can also scale up to full production management with ftrack Studio. Start your free trial today at ftrack.com. And now on to the show.
Hi everyone, welcome to the VFX Notes podcast. I'm Ian Fales from Befores and Afters, and as always, I'm joined by Hugo Guerra from Hugo's Desk. Hi Hugo.
Hey there. How are you doing, Ian?
I'm good. I'm now all the way back in Sydney after our very hilarious meetup at your house in London for Avatar. That was amazing, Hugo.
It was so good. It was so good to be with you in the same room. It's so different. It's a different energy, man. I wish we could do this. You just need to move to London, right? That's the only thing you need to do.
I will tell my partner that we need to do that, and I'll see what she says. No, but luckily Zoom is amazing, and that's how we do the podcast, basically. Me in Sydney and Hugo in London. Today, we're talking about Top Gun Maverick, which we will get to in a minute, even though I don't think the film has any visual effects in it. Oh no, I started already. But Hugo, we always start by thanking our sponsors, our Patreon supporters, and also the people who watch us and like and subscribe. But Patreon is a really cool way to help Befores and Afters and Hugo's Desk, because Hugo, people who Patreon supporters, they actually get the podcast early, right?
Yes, they do. Yeah, yes, they do. We can't thank everyone enough for all the support and lovely messages that we get all the time in Patreon and on social. But yeah, they get a few days early. They get to brag about that, and they can hear it. Also, it's ad-free as well. It doesn't have any of the ads in the beginning. And yeah, it's a bit more streamlined, I guess. And yeah, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. All right, Hugo, Top Gun Maverick. Now, I'm going to say something about this film straight away, is that I totally love it. I love this film for so many reasons that we'll get into. But I have only seen it once. Now, I always feel a little bit, I don't know, not as good as Hugo every single episode when I hear that Hugo's seen RRR 5 times or whatever. You know, how many times have you seen Maverick, Hugo?
I've only watched it 3 times. It wasn't that many. It was only 3 times. No. I watched it on IMAX, on actual IMAX the first time, and then I now watched it 2 times in a 4K projector. Yeah. It's I'm like you. I love the film. I absolutely love the film. I think it's one of my favorite films of the year. For sure, it's probably the most fun I've had in the cinema the whole year. And the film is magnificent. One of those examples of a film that is better than the first one, isn't it? It's so much better than the first one.
It is better, and it's different. You know, the first film is now considered a bit corny.
Yeah.
You know, but still kind of patriotic. This one is very patriotic.
Yeah.
And still has some nice humor in it.
Yeah.
But yes, the main thing about this film, apart from, some really rising kind of emotions that come up for different reasons, is the cinema experience. I hadn't been in a cinema for a while where people cheered. That collective experience of a cinema screening where that was happening was so super cool.
Yeah.
And I didn't think it was going to happen because it's one of those films where they plan out, the attack and what's meant to happen. But then, there's a kind of slight twist. But basically people were cheering and carrying on as if they were watching a retro screening of the first film, which often happens, right? You go to these retro Top Gun screenings and people cheer when the volleyball scene comes on. But I just found the new film made people cheer for the first time, which is actually quite unusual.
Yeah, it is. I think it's because it's such a spectacle. I even experienced that even the second and the third time I watched it. It's so silly. The third time, I already know the film by heart. I already know everything about the film. I just watched it. And then I watched the third time, and again, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to watch the third time because I'm going to make some extra notes for the podcast. And midway through the film, I'm not even making notes anymore. I'm again watching the film and cheering the film again and kind of distracted. And then by the end, I'm looking at, oh shit, I didn't do any notes. Should probably scroll through the film now. Because you get so engrossed into it. You like cheering and looking at the spectacle. Those scenes are just magnificent. The IMAX scenes. Isn't it true that Tom Cruise is kind of like, he's trying to save cinema one film at a time, isn't he? He has a quest.
He has a quest, and he's doing it. And he does it even in the promotion of his films. I mean, during the year at one of those CinemaCon things, he released that piece of footage of him on a biplane, for a mission film with Chris McQuarrie also on a plane. I mean, that even people would just like flock to watch that. And that's not even the film, right?
And he's 60 years old. It's insane. He's 60. He just turned 60. In the film, he was 59. But it's damn. I am impressed. I'm very impressed. No, it's a great film. It's a really good film, and I tell people to go and watch it. A lot of people I remember when the film came out, a lot of people were really not into it. They were like, Top Gun. Oh, I don't like Top Gun. It's like you said, it's corny. It's like. But eventually, everyone went to see it, and eventually, the word of mouth came through, and everyone just loved it. I don't think I've met anyone that told me that the film is shit. I don't think anyone,
No.
Everyone is kind of like globally really, I don't know, got hypnotized by Tom Cruise.
Yes, and they've seen it multiple times, like you, Hugo.
Yeah.
I just don't happen to have done that, but I think that's pretty rare.
Yeah.
There's not too many films where people go and see it multiple times in the cinema anymore. And so that's a huge thing.
I think this film is going to become like a cult hit. It's going to become one of those films that people watch to cheer and watch again and again, because it had so many really key sections on the film that are really like so cool to rewatch. There's some slower parts and parts that probably you can skip a bit, but the action scenes and the sequences, the flight scenes are just, I don't think I've ever seen anything like that ever. Like it's really something else, like compared to any other film.
Yeah. Obviously we will talk about the photography of those and the visual effects work. Yeah. But I also thought, Hugo, there was a clever thing with this film, which is you go into it kind of knowing it's going to have Son of Goose, right?
Yeah.
And that there's that weird relationship. They do that really well. They really do that really well, where they kind of hate each other, or Goose hates Maverick, or Son of Goose hates Maverick.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it becomes a rescue and a bonding sequence. And so that's one emotional beat. Then there's Maverick, Tom Cruise and Jennifer Connelly. That's another emotional beat.
Yeah.
I would say not as successful. But
yeah,
I still really love Jennifer Connelly, and I think it was great.
Yeah.
Just not as emotional as Son of Goose. Then there's Iceman.
Yeah.
And to have that Val Kilmer stuff in there, but have it to be so short, this film packs 3 emotional punches, and we haven't even talked about the flying rescue, shoot 'em up kind of sequences. That's a pretty big thing to accomplish in an action film, don't you think?
Yeah, I do as well. I completely agree with you. I think the Jennifer Connelly section doesn't hit so well because it comes a bit out of nowhere. We've never met her. She's not from the original film. We don't know what happened between them. I guess that's a smart thing as well, but it's also something that doesn't really relate to the nostalgic because you don't know that person. But yeah, the Val Kilmer thing really hit me as well. Like I was like a bit misty eyes and everything watching that sequence because it's so sad because you kind of like know that he's also struggling with his problems with his voice and struggling with a lot of he's pretty sick as well. So it's kind of like it becomes part of reality with Val Kilmer as well, especially because his documentary Val just came out like last year. And yeah, it's a great send-off to him, to that character. I'm so happy that he showed up. I'm so happy that he's actually in the film. And you really feel the chemistry between him and Tom Cruise on these sequences. It's so short. Yeah, like I said, it's just a few minutes. No, it's a surprise, right? Because I wasn't expecting the film to have this kind of deepness. I wasn't. Like, I thought it was just going to be like a shooter film and just like a very American gang on shooty thing. But no, it's I think that's why the film is special. It's definitely it's because of that side of things.
Yes, and look, they know how to do this, and it's clearly written to tingle our emotions. I mean, there's probably a 4th beat, which is when Tom Cruise basically proves to the younger pilots that he can do this training route quicker than they can. And that is just as emotional. And that's probably the bit where people in my audience were jumping up in getting really excited about. So they're really, however they've written this and adapted, changed the story around to really have those emotional beats, it really works. Yeah. It really, really works.
And then there's like it's funny that you said that. That's really important. There's this thing on this film where you have the modern side of things, the way the world works now. And you have all these young people, and they are really good as well. And then you have the nostalgic factor of Tom Cruise of being this old school type of fighter that drops the instruction manual into the trash bin. He doesn't care about the rules. He's just like trying to teach them something different. And it really resonates with the audiences, I think. And that's why I think it's quite smart because in one way, younger audience will be very attached to the young, new characters because they're quite cool. Roaster is really cool and Hangman is really cool as well. Those two have the same kind of chemistry and vibe that you saw on the original Maverick, Iceman. And I really like Hangman really on the film, and also Roaster as well. I think they're both of them really cool, and the whole team is really cool. So you have all these young people watching the film and really attaching themselves to those characters because they might not even been born when Tom Cruise did the original film. So they were like, I don't know who this guy is. It's an old guy that knows a lot of things. But then you have the nostalgic factor of Tom Cruise. So you basically bring both audiences into the film. You have the old people like us watching the film, the people that remember the time when the film came out the first time. Then you have all this new generation of youngsters that are not really attached to Top Gun, but are attached because you see all these young people as well. It's really smart. It's smart. And also it doesn't, some films like talk bad about the older people and talk bad about the young people. They don't talk bad about any of them. They basically work together and take advantage of both sides. There are advantages of these younger fighters and there's advantages on the older fighters. And when they come together, that's when they can pull off the mission. And I think that's a great story. It's a great message, of people coming together. And on the middle of all of this, they don't even have an enemy. You notice how you never know who the country they're invading is. I think that's really smart, and it's nice not to connect it to a typical, it's Russia, it's China, it's this, it's that. It's really cool. It's an enemy. They keep saying enemy. They just say enemy. I find that really cool.
Yeah, I reckon watching it, when I watched it, I thought, that's not going to work. But by the end of the film, it totally works. Yeah. And it's actually more intriguing. So yes, I agree, Hugo. That was really cool.
Yeah.
Let's turn our minds to how this film was made. Hugo. Obviously, just to put it out there, and we will get to the visual effects, but to put it out there is that the messaging behind this film is that so much of it was shot for real.
Yeah.
Practically.
Yeah.
With actors up in planes, with air-to-air combat being shot for real, and with very little visual effects, which we don't think is the case. But that was the messaging behind the film.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that it's also part of the success of the film.
Yeah.
As in, audiences for a couple of years now, and maybe the mainstream media and maybe people on Twitter have been denouncing CG. We've talked about it many times on the podcast.
Yeah.
And without going into the details of the shooting and the CG at the moment, I just mean, Hugo, I feel like the visceral, actiony, practical, real side of marketing and messaging of this film made people want to see it and made people get excited about it. Do you think that's the case?
Yeah, it is. This makes me, it makes me mad. It does, but it also makes me happy as well. It's a very conflicting emotion with this because like you said, the marketing message, and it goes even beyond that. If you watch the Bluray that came out, which has 90 minutes of behind the scenes, which is not true. It doesn't have 90 minutes of behind the scenes. What it has is about 20 minutes of them training to be a fighter, and then it has a bunch of music videos, and then it has this massive interview in Cannes about the career of Tom Cruise. So this Blu-ray is like a vehicle for Tom Cruise. It's nothing more than that. It doesn't even touch upon any of the effects, doesn't do any of that. It's a show. I think the messaging is very deliberate. They know if anyone talks about the CG and the green screens and the visual effects, in which there are many. Like, there's so much visual effects on this film that's unbelievable. And I think that if they would have said that, if they would have told that, people might have not gone to the cinema to watch it. And this is very sad, and that's why I'm mad about this, because we reached the point where the studios themselves have to protect themselves so that the film does well. Because if the film gets into this shroud of a controversy about all the green screen and all the visual effects, then people kind of just switch off. But if you kind of go to the messaging that they went on the planes, then they kind of want to go and see it. And so I understand why they did it. Tom Cruise himself, he says this many times it's a fascinating interview, the one on the Blu-ray. It's this interview on Cannes, which on the Festival of Cannes, and where they're basically going through his entire career. Multiple times on this interview, he says that he wants to hide everything. He doesn't want anyone to know how they did it. Multiple times. He says this about the Mission Impossible movies. He says this about Top Gun, the original Top Gun. And in a way, he kind of mentions this as something that he kind of like took out from Kubrick, when working with him. Because Kubrick was very much like that as well. He didn't really know much about what was happening and how Kubrick was doing things. So it's all about this mystique of cinema, which Tom is now perfected. He's the magician that doesn't reveal any tricks, and it's unfortunate for us, but because especially for me, I'm from the visual effects industry, and it's a shame that the almost 1,000 people that worked on this film are not getting their full credit on the amazing work that they've done. But their credits is on the to the credit to the studio. All the names are on the credits. If you go and watch the credits, it's 3.5 minutes of rolling of names on CG. So the entire thing of there's no CG. I mean, come on, there's like 1,000 people on the credits. So there's a lot of CG. So I think it's conflicting. I know why they did it. I know that they have to do it. It's an unfortunate situation. But it makes me mad that we got here. It does. It really pisses me off, this kind of thing.
I think there's a few points to make about that, which is, yes, it's the studio marketing machine that's trying to and not open up about the visual effects side of this film. But I think it's also almost directly coming from the star, as you're kind of saying. Tom Cruise has said that the delay in making this sequel, as in, they didn't start making it till 2018, is he wanted to make sure they could go up in planes and feel like the actors are in planes. He'd obviously seen, and audiences have seen, many, many films, including the original Top Gun, shot mostly in, mock-up cockpits, or where the actors are CG or the planes are completely CG. Now, I think all Tom's saying is that he feels as an actor, based on his experience in other films, that the audience connects with him and the actors doing the stunts for real. This is why his big stunts for the Mission films and other films, they tend to get made into featurettes 6 months before the film comes out. I always think of them as massive spoilers. But of course, they're marketing efforts to show that they film these sequences, or that he's there doing the stuff. And they totally work. It totally works in terms of the marketing side, as we're saying. But then there's the other side, Hugo, which is I'm really careful about this. It is true. Some of the things Tom Cruise says and others say about films that have a lot of computer graphics and visual effects in them, it is true that it sometimes takes the audience out of the film, right? When it's done poorly. Now, we could spend 6 hours talking about what that means. Is it the director's fault? Is it planning? Is it the visual effects artist's fault? Is it whatever? Is it the shot design? So I think all of that mixed in together is the reason why you get the end result, which is a terrible way of summarizing it, that practical is better. But it is the reason why this conversation happens in the film-going universe at the moment.
Yeah, it is. It is. You're absolutely right. And I mean, credit due where credit is. Like, they really went and shot stuff. They really went to cockpits. They really rigged the F-18s with multiple 6 cameras and a gigantic rig there, and they had to film themselves. All of that shit happened, and you see it in behind the scenes, and you see some stunning footage that was captured that way. And no one is saying that didn't happen. I mean, I respect and props for them because it does look stunning. And if it was full CG, if it was done on an LED stage, it would not look that good. There's just the fact of the matter that it wouldn't. You wouldn't have the G-forces. You wouldn't see their faces. You wouldn't see their blood moving, their faces moving. It's just a different, and unless it would have been full CG, but we probably wouldn't be able to do a full CG film like that. It would have been too expensive. It would have been too hard to make all of that. And I feel like that's where this conversation becomes a bit muddled, because they went and shoot everything. And for most people that don't know a lot about visual effects, it looks like that's the final shot. But then when you start digging up into it, especially like I've now watched it in 4K HDR on my projector, and because I'm now watching the second and the third time, I'm taking more close attention into the VFX. I'm looking in, I'm zooming in, I'm like looking in more detail. And you clearly see sometimes the CG. You see it from differences in grain and differences in shading and differences in lighting and certain weird things that are happening there. You kind of see where the CG shots are, but they are so well blended. And it's the trick here is that they constantly cut to real shots and then they go to CG and then go to real shots. And a lot of times the shots are 80% real and then just maybe the backgrounds are full CG. So there's like this entire way of approaching the shots, which is remarkable and makes it even more real. And most people will still think that they really were on those canyons, that they really went through those trees and they really went through those bridges, which none of that happened. Most of it was CG. In fact, they didn't even have these many planes. So but we'll probably never see that featurette. We'll never probably see it. There will never be. I don't think it'll ever be out. I don't think so.
Yeah, well, we can only speculate, and it might all depend on VFX award season. But we'll come back to that. I think, Hugo, the home video release thing is interesting because I remember watching this on an amazing screen in Sydney and thinking the visual effects were seamless.
Yeah.
And it is also true when I've watched a Blu-ray or something at home that I do feel like the color grade or something of a Blu-ray, a particular film, makes the visual effects stand out in a not wrong way, but in a different way than what I remembered on the screen. Is that what you think you're kind of reacting to?
I've seen this many times. In fact, I've seen that now recently with Everything Everywhere at Once. Noticed a lot more of the VFX while I was watching the Blu-ray than I watched on the cinema. Well, I think it's two factors here. The first one is that when you watch it for the first time, you're so engrossed in the story, you don't really notice a lot of things. So they slip and you don't really notice them. And the second time you're watching, you're probably noticing them more, and then you're looking for them. No disrespect to the team. I think the CG is seamless. It's just that the problem with the Blu-ray is that, they have to create multiple grades. They have to create the Rec. 09 grade for TV broadcast, for Sky, for Amazon, for Apple, if it's like HD only. And that's Rec. 09 color space. And then they have to make the HDR version, which is for Blu-rays and for the Apple streaming, if you are watching it in an HDR. Then they have to also do, which that one is in Rec. 2020 color space. And then you have the cinema release, which is a P3 color space, which is another different. So you now have 3 color spaces at least to run this thing. And that means that a lot of times, I don't know if that happened on this film, a lot of times you need to do multiple grades. The grade session has to be adapted so that it still works on HDR, it still works on SDR. And also sometimes the transfers, the encoding might change things. And especially if you're encoding in H.265 or even on MPEG 2 for Blu-ray, you could have a problem where the grain might become an issue, and then if the grain is not completely applied on certain areas and it's applied on other areas, it might come up on the compression. You might see it because when it's compressing the image, it knows that there's a different pixel there, and the variations on the pixels get more visible. So I think compression, encoding, and color space grading will always make a slight difference. It's always different from watching it on the real cinema. The real cinema, you're watching the closest thing to the master you will watch, because it's like very high-end, high bandwidth P3 color space version of the film that is playing back. And if you're watching it on IMAX, it's even better quality. So you won't see any banding, you won't see any pixels, you won't see, because on the Blu-ray you see banding, you see like artifacts, you see all sorts of things, and I think that's why it happens, Ian. So it kind of like you kind of see them a bit better, but I think some of the effects are more visible now the second time I watched it, because some of them have to do with shot design. As soon as you get the planes to get that close to camera, I think that's where you lose them, especially on these cutaways when the plane goes, just swoops through the camera, because that's not going to be, even if unconsciously, that they would never be able to safely refilm that. I think that's what happens on those shots, and other shots like that. The one that really comes to mind is when they are approaching the enemy territory, and you see the 4 jets, and then you see on the back, you see the actual coastline of where they are arriving to go into this S places. It's so noticeable that that's a CG environment, and I think it's because it just doesn't completely look right. It's like you can kind of see it's a bit too clear. There's not fog enough. It's because they're trying to convey the story. They want to show where they're going. It's just a bit off, and that would have been an impossibility. They would never be able to fly the planes on those S's and on those environments, But again, respect and props to everyone. It looks amazing. It looks stunning,
I really hope, seeing as obviously haven't been able to cover the film, and there really is almost zero visual effects coverage of the film out when we're recording, I almost hope, Hugo, that we mention a sequence that we say is real or CG and we get it wrong. I mean, obviously there's a comp side to this. I just want to say something about home video. I call it that because I still think of it as home video. I do want to say Tom Cruise and his frequent collaborator, Chris McQuarrie, who's obviously has a screenplay credit on this, they're advocates for turning off motion smoothing. And I think that's just a really awesome thing that they are advocates of, because it really shits me when I go to someone's house and motion smoothing is on and they don't get why I'm telling them to turn it off. Anyway, I really needed to mention that.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because this is the first time I've ever bought a Blu-ray, a 4K Blu-ray that does not include the normal disc, the normal Blu-ray, and it does not include an SDR version. You can only watch it in HDR 4K. If your TV does not support HDR 4K, you can't watch the disc. A pop-up, a message shows up on screen saying you need to purchase a 4K HDR TV. And I don't know if it's true, but I bet this is Tom Cruise, man. I just feel like I can feel him saying to the studio, no one is going to watch this on a crap TV. I can feel him already saying that. And it's the first time that it ever happened on a Blu-ray where I actually had to put up the projector and actually watch it on the projector, because I don't have a 4K TV. I only have a 4K projector. And so I found it fascinating. You're right. He has a mandate. He's on a mission. He's a man on a mission until the day he dies. He's trying to save cinema. You'll see when Mission Impossible comes out. It will be the same thing again. It will be like a spectacle, and you'll see.
Yeah. Let's talk about, we've mentioned it a little bit in terms of how they shot this film, but let's dive into that a little bit more. Again, we're kind of piecing this together from some featurettes that are out. There is a really great American cinematographer article.
Yeah.
There's a few other things. From what I can gather, to get some aerial sequences of actors in cockpits, they basically had access to 2 or 1 Super Hornets. That's an FA-18.
Yeah.
Where the actor could sit in the back.
Yeah.
Right? And a real pilot could pilot the film. Now, I probably think it's mostly Tom Cruise shots where he is, the real Tom Cruise. There are other scenes where it seems like it's the real other actors as well.
Yeah.
But, they're not Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
And it's a bit like the Tom Cruise jumping out of the plane in one of the Mission films as well, where only he did it, and I'm not sure the other actors did it. So they've got these Super Hornets.
Yeah.
They've shot what they can with the actor. But also, Hugo, they've shot it in a particular way with the Sony Venice camera, haven't they? Yeah,
they did. Yeah, so what you're referring to, the American cinematography, and also there's a shorter video on YouTube as well on official channels about this. On the Blu-ray, there's like a more extended, longer documentary about the filming of this. And as much as it's a 10-minute, it's like 15-minute long, I think, or something like that, video about the shooting, about the Venice side and the cameras and the rigs and everything and what they had to do. It's a really interesting documentary. I think it's the most interesting documentary of the Blu-ray, really, to be honest. As far as I can see, the other actors were there. Yes, they were. You can see that on the behind the scenes. You can see that on that extended behind the scene. And so they also, there's another documentary on the Blu-ray about the training that they had to go through. They had to do all sorts of survival training on the water. They had to do all sorts of G-force training as well, so that they could at least not faint when the plane would be flying at 3, 4, 5, 6 Gs, So obviously Tom is more ready for those things, because he actually flies planes and he flies helicopters. That's all true. He's been flying it ever since Top Gun. Ever since he did the first Top Gun, he's been obsessed by flying, and he actually has planes. Actually, his private plane is on the film. The last plane, the smaller plane he flies off to the sunset, that's his actual personal plane. A P-15, I think that's the name. I think it's a Second World War plane.
You've got one of those, right, Hugo?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I've got one too. Yeah.
But yeah, the Venice thing is really cool, because what they did here was they did. Well, first of all, they had to do it with the military consultant, because anything you attach to this plane has to, first of all, be in a place that doesn't affect the instrumentation. The other thing as well is that it has to be in a very specific attachment, because it has to survive the 4 or 5 G forces that it will have. That means no pins or cables or even the memory card. Everything has to be attached in some way, because imagine if the force G would turn. Imagine the memory card comes out of the camera. There's all sorts of issues that you don't even think about when you're not filming in G-forces. So they had to do this rig, and It's true. It's the Venice 6K camera. It has this really cool attachment. It's like the body is separated and connected with a cable to the sensor and to the lens. That means that they only have the sensor and the lens to actually rig, and then they can put the body somewhere else. They could put the body of the camera on a different place of the plane. I think that's the smarter part of this feature. Now, on the documentary, they say this camera was specifically built for Top Gun. I don't believe so, because I think this camera exists as a camera that they've made. It's just that it was made as an action camera, but I think they kind of took part of it. But yeah, it's a rig of 6, isn't it, Ian? It's 6 cameras.
Yeah, and that array is just absolutely for practical purposes and editorial purposes, because you can't really send up actors in planes multiple times for multiple takes. You want to try and get as many takes, pieces of footage in one go. So they figured if they could get 6 angles, and it's really just the front and sort of, up, not above, but kind of top view of the actor's pilot's head, then in editorial, they would have the opportunity to use those different angles to do things. Now, plus, there's also the IMAX release.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that meant giving larger film format, film frame sensor size, but we get to that IMAX thing in a minute. I haven't seen it in IMAX, and I really want to ask you about it in a second, Hugo. The other thing that's really interesting, isn't it, Hugo, is that when someone took off in the plane, they had to turn the camera on at some point, right?
Yeah.
And kind of hope for the best. I think I read or heard a podcast with Joe Kosinski, the director, saying that pretty much worked every time, and there was only a couple of times when they didn't get what they needed. So, yes, a lot of rigging engineering to make it happen. We should mention the DOP, Claudio Miranda, who's worked with Joe Kosinski before, and Tom Cruise, of course, on Oblivion. And so, yes, really, really good, interesting approach to, again, feeling connected to the actor in the cockpit.
Absolutely. And also the IMAX thing you're talking about, it is stunning in IMAX. You can really feel the wideness of it, and a bit distracting on the Blu-ray, because on the Blu-ray the film constantly cuts from regular and 45 to IMAX. So every time there's an action scene, it goes open to IMAX. Or whenever he's riding the bike, like I noticed when he's riding the bike with her and they're just going to the sunset, that's also IMAX. But then when it's regular storyline beats, normally it's just a 35 millimeter cut. So the thing opens up all the time. The gate opens up all the time on the film, on the Blu-ray. Lenses were super wide, super clean as well. They use these Fuji lenses. There's a featurette and even everything in YouTube with the DOP. And they supposedly they're very clean, and you can kind of see that on the film. Not a lot of vignetting going on, not a lot of vibration going on, not a lot of depth, distortion going on the sides. It's a super clean film, really clean. It's not artifacty at all. It's not that kind of film that they try to, when we talked about Dune and the other films, where they're trying to dirten the image up. Not in this case. Yeah. This film is super clean, super crisp. This is something Claudio Miranda usually does. If you look back at Throne Legacy, super clean as well. You look at Oblivion, super clean as well. He actually famously won the Oscar for Life of Pi, which is, of course, the controversial Oscar because the film is so much CG on it. But yeah, he's used to CG, I'm sure. He even was the DOP of Benjamin Button as well. So yeah, no, the film looks really beautiful. And I guess, Ian, there's this side of the 6 Venice 6K cameras, which are really cool. But there's another camera flying around, isn't it? Which is really cool, actually. This is really, really cool.
It's probably my favorite part of the behind the scenes, which is this thing called a CineJet, and used regularly for air-to-air filming. But you got to keep up with those planes, and
an helicopter wouldn't cut it.
Yeah, and of course we're talking about fixed wing kind of footage, but also stuff in a gyro stabilized unit that people might be familiar with aerial footage. Yeah, and maybe Hugo, just on that point of aerial footage, and you're talking earlier about CG shots versus real.
Yeah.
In fact, that is what works in those aerial sequences.
Yeah.
Is cockpit, fixed wing, air to air, mostly it's filmed as if you had to put a camera on something and film it.
Yeah.
I kind of agree with what you just said before, which is occasionally there's a shot that a camera couldn't have acquired. Some of those are where the planes go vertical or they're coming towards camera. Clearly, if they come really close to camera and there's a couple of explosions, although I think the explosions look amazing.
They do, yeah.
But it's just, the shot design. So, however, just like we've probably said before on a big action film, when you're in the moment to get the most exciting kind of shot, they totally work.
Yeah.
Right. So
it's
I'm
really
not
smart.
dissing them.
No, it's really smart. It's because remember when we were talking about the Batman a couple of months ago on our podcast, where we talked about the Penguin is like laughing and then there's the explosion in the back, and again that shot was shot for real. He was actually on a car rig and he was there, but then they replaced half of the left side of the screen is entirely in CG, although most people don't know that because there's no behind the breakdowns. But same happens here. They really were there, and you see their faces, you see the G-forces, you see all of the actual acting and flying around and getting bounced around on the plane. But then the backgrounds are replaced and there's actual CG being placed there. But it's so seamless because they already have the original footage. That's the cool thing about this, because they went up and shot it. This I completely agree with. Claudio Mirando on the documentary says, and I quote, "This was not green screen nonsense." He says that on the documentary, and I agree with him. This would never work if it was green screen. You wouldn't get the light right. You wouldn't get the reflections on the glass. You wouldn't get This is like shooting the ultimate reference piece of footage, because then you need to match to this thing. Anything you put there, the matte paintings, the CG environments, the smoke, the explosions, everything has to match to this massive 6K plate that they shot on these Venice cameras. And I think that's the trick here. And I guess I'm kind of doing a segue, am I? Sorry, didn't mean to.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Didn't mean to.
We should use this opportunity to mention the visual effects houses here.
Yeah.
Led by Method Studios, which of course used to be Atomic Fiction, the unit that worked on this, and is now actually Framestore.
Yeah.
The visual effects supervisor production side was Ryan Tudhope, who also hails from Method.
Yeah.
And he was a really, really nice guy. So Method were the main studio. Then MPC also did a fair bit of work, I understand. Lola's there, our good friends Lola VFX, and also Blind, which, they tend to do motion graphics, UI, things like that. But I'm actually not sure what they did on this film.
Yeah. Could be that. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of motion graphics, a lot of really cool, especially when they're really plot devices for them to fly around through that map and everything.
Yes.
So could be that.
Yeah.
Lola is like, did they de-age something? Did they do anything? That is the thing. We'll never know. We'll never know if Tom Cruise was de-aged or if it was Val Kilmer. I don't know. Like maybe it was,
There's so many things that Lola do now, from de-aging to beauty work, that they often can and can't talk about. But I wouldn't be surprised if they're on this film for quite a few shots. I mean, I feel, Hugo, and I think it might have been mentioned somewhere in some article, that there's more than 2,000 visual effects shots in the film.
Yeah.
And none of that is actually that surprising in a film about fighter jets going over a foreign land.
I went and counted on Internet with the Database a couple of months ago. It might be more now. At the time, a few months ago, when the film came out, I went and counted all the artists credited on Internet Movie Database, and it's around 900 and something at the time. This was like 2 months ago. Probably is more now because people are slowly putting more credits and more credits. It's probably over 1,000 now, but it was at least 900 people involved on VFX. I'm not talking about just like production. I'm talking about like real TDs and modelers and compositors and CG and lighters, and there's like that entire list. And also on the film, there's like a 3-minute long credit list on the end. Now the film has a huge team. Wikipedia says only 700 shots, but I don't think that's possible. I think it has to be more than 700 shots. Like you said, we don't know. Like we think it's 2,000. We've heard those rumors, and there's also like the fact that they only had 2 planes, and most of the film is 4 planes. So guess what? They can't mirror them, can they? They have to do them in CG. Also, the F-14, as I understood, there's no F-14 on the film. It's a reskin, isn't it? So it's not even an F-14, which is one of the funniest parts of the film, really, for them to go and dig up the original plane that used to fly.
Yeah, but isn't that interesting, Hugo? Because forget about the is it shot practically or digitally. Yeah. We know that visual effects is here to help tell the story.
Yeah.
If you need to tell the story of the old Tomcat, and you can't get access to a real one and you can't fly it, well, of course you're going to use visual effects to help bring that to life. In the same way that the test airplane, the Darkstar, I mean, I've definitely seen recent photographs now of a mock-up model that may have been used on the film or may have been used, for promotion or at air shows.
It's on the Blu-ray. There's a documentary on the Blu-ray that it's physical. They are there and he's inside the plane. And they've built one. They've actually built one. It doesn't fly. It doesn't fly, but like it's like a real prop,
Yeah. I guess what I'm getting at is you're not going to have a plane that doesn't exist fly. So it's not that visual effects, like my obvious point here is that visual effects is the thing that helps make this story possible.
Yeah, I know, right? I
know. And some of it is not actually over the top visual effects.
No.
Some of it is, there's explosions and there's, that kind of crazy lift off from the runway at the end, which clearly involves some great map painting, environment work and, CG planes. But I just like that in some ways VFX came in here to solve story problems.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree.
Like the reskinning of planes, for example.
Absolutely agree. And like you said, the environments, they are stunning. You are really flying inside these really narrow corridors, which would be unsafe for them to fly, really unsafe. And so whenever you see these really tight corridors, they most likely film them on deserts and on open areas, and then they tighten them up. Which is funny because it happens on the film as well. They're like pretending to be on these tight corridors, but they're in the middle of the desert with an open desert. And then you see the graphic pretending that it's a smaller thing. And then it happens for real later on. So, no, the environment work is top notch. Like it's seamless. And you're talking about really, really detailed work as well here, because you also, besides the environment behind them, and besides the fact you have to roto and do all of this, you also have to place back all these reflections and scratches and all these kind of things that happen on the glass that is around them, because that's in front of the environment. It's some stunning work, and I kind of have a feeling that if they really broadcast it and actually make a featurette, I don't think no one else. I think it has a shot of winning the VFX Oscar. I feel like this is the most seamless and the most amazing VFX all year, by far. Into the fact that people even think there's no VFX, that's a call sign right there, isn't it? Like it's like if people think there's no VFX and there's 2,000 shots, that's the Oscar right there, right? I mean, you can't get a bigger stamp of approval than that of people thinking there's no CG.
I agree. And there's history here, Hugo.
Yeah.
There's history. The 2 films, or there's really 3, where I feel something very, very similar happened. Maybe not to the extent of having zero coverage of the visual effects, but almost in the case of one of them. These were films that came out, were really well received by audiences, had a ton of practical effects and an equal ton of visual effects. But in general, the CG digital visual effects were not discussed that much. The films I'm talking about, and this is at least at first, because actually afterwards more and more got discussed. The films I'm talking about are Mad Max Fury Road, The Revenant, which probably nearly won the VFX Oscar.
Yep.
And No Time to Die, which... Yep. And so all of these films were nominated for the VFX Oscar.
Yeah.
What I think is fascinating about some of those films, though, is that when audiences and readers and interested people and Academy voters found out how much digital work had been done to supplement the great stunt work and special effects and practical effects, I actually think it added to the respect of those films, especially in the case of Mad Max.
Yeah.
Something about Mad Max's reveal of all the practical effects and then later the visual effects really resonated with people.
Yeah.
The Revenant, well, that was a bit more of the director hiding, I think, the use of CG for the bear and some other sequences. No Time to Die, in the end, there was a lot of discussion about ILM, DNEG and Framestore's work and other studios. So that was great. But what's your take on that, Hugo? There's an interesting history of don't tell people too much about the visual effects, but actually when they find out, it adds more respect.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You're totally right. And to this day, still have heated discussions with people outside this industry, telling me how Mad Max is all real, like it's all shot for real, when in reality it has so much CG, it's insane. I just feel like this is going to be one of those films. There will be people forever thinking that this film was shot for real and that they actually went and did dogfighting. There was actually 4 planes flying around everywhere, and they actually went and flew through below a bridge, in vertical. Like people think that it is all true. And again, like I said at the beginning, it pisses me off, but I respect it. I feel like it is the ultimate compliment for people to think that it's all real. I think if I was a VFX artist on this project or a composer on this project, a CG artist, I would be very proud of that, but also very pissed because I could never show it on my show reel. But I would also be incredibly proud of saying, oh shit, no one knows that we did anything. and it's like...
Yeah, or no one knows how much we did, I suppose.
Exactly.
I mean, the audience member these days is quite smart and does know some of that. But the feeling...
I don't agree with you. Like, look at the comments on YouTube. Most people constantly bash CG, saying that this film is real. Most people are convinced that this is all real and actually write stuff like, "Oh, this is so much better. I'm so glad they didn't put any of this CG crap." And it's so heartbreaking to read these comments. And I'm not talking about 1 or 2. There are thousands of comments like this on Twitter, on YouTube, on all the trailers. Even entire podcasts dedicated to this, I've heard. Like, there's entire channels. Like, if you go to the Drinker's YouTube channel, which is like this big reviewer on YouTube that bashes films, his review of Top Gun, the entire 10 minutes is him telling everyone that it was all shot for real, that CG is really bad, CG is shit, green screen is shit. He spends the whole video saying that CG is the worst thing that ever happened to cinema. And I'm not joking. This is a problem.
No.
This is a heartfelt problem.
I just want to say, Hugo, unlike you, and I'm should be more rounded. I just avoid those kind of YouTubers and people. I'm talking about the smart audience goer who I think maybe knows that it's CG but doesn't care. Like I do. There's this different kind of passion on Twitter and YouTube that's weird.
I know. And
it
all
there.
represents
like 5%.
I know. It represents 5%.
But it is the studio responding to that stuff. And I get it. I totally get it. There was a funny little incident the other day when the Guardians of the Galaxy has a holiday special coming out. I think the weekend we're recording this, right? Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And someone reviewed it and said, "Oh, thank God they made Groot practical," or something like that. And of course, James Gunn, who directed this holiday special and the new third film coming out, like had to say, "Well, no, it's not. It's like all the visual effects artists." So it goes on and on. It goes on and on.
I know.
So,
I know. But it's very heartfelt for me because I know I know these comments only represent like 5% of the population, but they get picked up by Variety. They get picked up with all these bullshit YouTube channels and all these big news channels, which they are not news channels. They're just bullshit videos. But it gets picked up and it's clickbaity and it's really disingenuous and it's not. It's. Sometimes I talk with Anna, with my wife, about this, and she's not from the industry. She's not from visual effects. So whenever I'm ranting about this stuff, she always tells me the same thing. She always tells me, "But isn't that illegal for you to market and lie about it?" And I always remember that. Like, I always think about that. Yeah, we have rules about marketing where you can't lie about a product on a commercial. Isn't this the same? Like, I kind of sometimes feel when I watch these behind the scenes and then I watch the comments and I watch how they're steering public opinion into these films, it's a bit borderline lying, really, to be honest. It is. And it really pisses me off a bit. Like when you watch the behind the scenes and you're watching a CG shot and they're saying, "Yeah, we went and shot it for practical." And then you're watching a CG shot and they were actually on a CG shot and they're saying it's practical. And it feels to me like that never gets picked up. No, later on, no one goes back and checks, "Well, you were lying here." And I feel like other products and other things don't have that kind of safety net, So
it definitely happens.
Yeah.
Occasionally, I'm going to give directors and actors and other people a get out of jail free card because they slightly misspeak.
Yeah.
And their CG tends to get used for everything. Like compositing, is that CG? No. And it's often compositing two live action plates together, right? So it's digital, but it's not CG. So, I have this conversation all the time with the amazing Todd Vasari from ILM, and he's really amazing on Twitter, as are you, Hugo, for calling out times when a director or someone says, "Oh, we shot it practically," or "We shot it all for real." And what I think sometimes the director gets that wrong.
I know.
But sometimes also they shot it in a set, but then it's extended digitally. So is that shot for real? Well, it kind of is.
I know what you mean. It's a language problem. It's definitely a language problem.
I'm not defending them. No, I'm just saying there's a weird nuance there.
I know what you mean. Vasari is doing an amazing job trying to clear the record about this thing. But the problem is he only has 50,000 followers or something, or 70,000. He has a lot. I mean, for the VFX industry, it's amazing. It's huge. Like an enormous following. But man, these articles are watched by millions of people. There's no way you can clear the record. There's no way. There's like maybe 0.5% of the people that actually watch that. And what pisses me off about this is yes, it is the lying and the disingenuous, and I think sometimes you're right. Maybe sometimes it's like lack of communication, lack of understanding what's going on. But sometimes I also think there is like an actual beef about this, because I'll give an example. On the Bluray, on this amazing interview about the career of Tom Cruise, multiple times during the interview says how he loves to go around and learn all the departments of the films. He goes and bothers the people from makeup. He goes and bothers the people from the set design. He goes around on the set and talks to every of them. And this is true. I've met people on set that have told me this, that he goes around and talks to everyone. Everyone I've ever heard says that he's the nicest person in the world. He goes around and compliments everyone, goes around, talks with everyone, has lunch with the crew. He's like, I've been told this multiple times. I've never met Tom, but met Tom Cruise, but for multiple people that I've been on set, have told me this, and I believe those people. Those people are credible, and I really believe them. And so he's a super nice guy. He's really interested on all aspects of filmmaking, and he wants to learn everything about it. But you know what he doesn't talk about on those documentaries? He always talks about the makeup, the set design. He always talks about the props. He always talks about the stunts. He talks about the editing, the sound. He talks about the grading. You know what he doesn't fucking talk about? He never talks about the VFX, ever. And I'm like, okay, what about that crew? What about that department? That's a department as well. And I know it's not as glamorous to go into a building of basically a sweatshop of 1,000 people inside a building doing CG, and it's not as glamorous to go around and watch the monitors and everything, but give it a bit of credit at least. It really kind of like rubs me the wrong way when they do not even mention it. And it's funny, you were talking about James Gunn. James Gunn is amazing at that. He always mentions everyone. A lot of directors do, and it really kind of triggers me to see Tom Cruise not doing it and people like him. There's a lot of directors like him, a lot of people like him.
Obviously, Tom's not a director, but I know what you mean, Hugo.
He is the director of these projects. Come on. I know he's not the director on the credit, but he is. He is directing all of them.
I'm going to say, I guess I've never really heard him praise visual effects on its own, but there might be a quote out there.
Probably.
But I wonder, Hugo, if it's just all caught up in that, keeping it behind the curtain.
Could be.
Philosophy.
Yeah.
The truth is Tom Cruise has had some of the biggest interactions with visual effects breakthroughs over the years.
Yeah.
Starting with the first Mission film and stuff that ILM was doing there, amazing stuff in Minority Report and War of the Worlds, and just continuing.
Oblivion with the LED screens and
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm confident that he's a full collaborator with all the visual effects teams and whatnot. But look, we've already talked about it. It is part of the secrecy of not revealing too much and
I know.
Tapping into that CG sucks thing.
And I know I'm talking to the choir because everyone listening to this show already knows this. I know that. I just wish that we did not have to go through these things. And it really rubs me the wrong way to think that there are 1,000 people that worked on this film and they're not really getting any chance of showing their breakdowns. They're not getting any chance of being shown by a behind the scenes. And eventually we'll get these breakdowns on the Visual Effects Society, but they are private. They're never going to be published, Most likely this will never be published. No one will ever be allowed to show anything. And this has happened multiple times on other films we've discussed. There are secret breakdowns everywhere for a lot of films out there. And I don't know. I don't know what we can do about this. I don't know how we solve this problem. I understand that there's a magical part of it, but man, come on. After a year of the film coming out or 2 years, who cares anymore? Let's just show it. And I feel like a lot of times these studios are hiding these things for just nothing when they could actually take advantage of it. I think there is a place where a couple of years later, or maybe a year later, they could even do featurettes about this and actually have a lot of coverage on the film and have a second life on the film by showcasing how much extra work was done there, and probably people would be interested. And it could actually maybe sway the public's opinion about this, because the public has this idea that CG is bad because of stuff like Scorpion King, which is 20 years old now. And people don't really understand that CG has moved on so much that they don't even know what the fuck they're talking about. They don't even know that there's CG anymore. And most films have CG where they actually think the film is real, but it's not. And I feel like the studios are not helping. I don't know, man. I don't have any beef with anyone, but I'm kind of like, this kind of really triggers me, but I'm going to shut up now. I'm not going to say anything more.
Well, all I think the takeaway, apart from those concerns, is that actually it also shows how good the visual effects were by Method and the other companies. Because we've seen it, you've seen it 3 times. Yes, I don't have any breakdowns or anything like that, but I couldn't necessarily pinpoint whether a particular shot was a real plane or CG plane. Yeah. Or
it's
whether
amazing.
Some of the backgrounds are plate backgrounds versus CG TerraGen type things. So that's brilliant. However, Hugo, we have not, amongst the CG planes, the environments, smoke, missiles, explosions, destruction, we haven't talked about the greatest visual effect in the film, have we?
God.
We haven't mentioned it yet. I can't believe it. And that is, of course, Jennifer Connelly's pants.
Of course,
Hugo,
of course
are
it is. Yeah.
Are you on top of the significant work involved in Jennifer Connelly's pants? I'm not being terrible or rude or anything.
No.
This is a real thing.
I can't believe we're talking about Top Gun with all the flights and all the planes and all the explosions. You're talking about the pants of Jennifer Connelly. Like, yeah, there was some CG there, some trickery going on. So what happened, Ian? Tell us.
Well, I think more because of a change in editorial and, getting the story point right. There's a scene on where Maverick and she go sailing, and she'd previously been in the bar, and they needed to change the color of her pants while she was sailing for continuity reasons, basically. And we all know that can be done probably in color grading, but it can also be done in visual effects. There are challenges with different materials and whatnot. I don't have the fine details, but Eddie Hamilton, the editor of the film, relayed it to a film website the other day. We'll find a link for it and you can find out the more details. If I ever get to do an interview with Ryan Tudhope, I will certainly ask the question about Jennifer Connelly's pants. But again, it is about the invisible nature of the work, right? Like if no one ever mentioned that, no one would have known.
Yeah, no. I think this film is going to win the Oscar. Although I keep saying this on every episode. I think RRR should get it. And I keep saying this on every episode. Every episode I'm going to keep saying RRR, because it's the best film of VFX of the year. But Top Gun is going to win it. I think Top Gun is going to definitely win it. I think it's in full course to do that. It is so invisible and so seamless that people, if any breakdown comes out for the Oscar specifically, for the private screenings, or even for the members, like they're gonna blow people away when they see those breakdowns, if they exist. I'm sure they exist, but we haven't seen them yet. Yeah.
Just to quickly mention that sailing sequence, I'm actually convinced there's also a lot of visual effects work there, Hugo,
probably,
but I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
It just seems like Tom Cruise would want to film those scenes for real.
Yeah.
But they're actually shot very dramatically, aren't they? Yeah. And with like high wind.
Well, it's probably like the sailing scenes on Tenet. Also, the sailing scenes on Tenet also are all shot for real, but then they're actually not real at all. Like if you look at the breakdowns, which are not available, you see full CG water replacements, you see full CG sails. Which there were sails there, but then they put other sails, and the water was there, but they put other water. There's all sorts of trickery going on here for dramatic effect. Absolutely. I think there's also other shots where this is happening, I'm sure. Rigs removal and things, and I'm sure there's a lot of other things going on. I wanted to let you know one thing. Like, have you? I need to this is a segue, but have you seen this theory, this fan theory about the beginning of the film that happens on the net? There's a lot of people saying that. So I'm gonna blow your mind now. So a lot of people actually think that when the plane, this what's the name of the plane? This
Darkstar.
Darkstar. When the Darkstar plane explodes on Mach 10.4. The fastest man alive, which is not actually correct because the people that went to the moon were the fastest. But fastest man alive, the plane explodes, and a lot of people actually have a fan theory that he actually died. And the rest of the film is actually just a dreamy sequence of him. So he's actually dead because, come on, how did he survive that explosion?
Wow.
There's this fan theory that the entire film is like a flash beyond their eyes sequence of him either being dead completely or in a coma or just about to die, and because no one would survive that thing. And the whole thing is really weird because then he goes into this really remote bar to drink some water. It's a really strange sequence if you start thinking about it. So maybe
that's fascinating. That's very David Lynchian, isn't it? Like that could be if David Lynch directed the film. I mean, if they make a third one, Hugo, then what do we say about it then? But I like that theory. That's cool. I've never heard that one.
I don't think awesome. They'll. It's funny that you're saying about the third one. I actually think there won't be a third one. I don't know. I have a feeling. There won't be one because if you think about it, it took him 30 years to do the second one. He constantly said that he didn't want to do it. And then Tom Tony Scott died, so that was even more remotely to happen. But then he kind of said he would only do it if the right script was there, and I kind of feel this film closed the story. I mean, is there any, except if you do, it could happen that they do a side film with just these young characters. I think Tom Cruise's character, Maverick's character, I think that's done. I feel like he's, it's finished.
That's his journey.
Yeah, because what else he's going to do? How can he top this? I don't think he can top what he's did here. He's going to also get too old for it to be reliably realistic. And I feel like if they do, they can do a spin-off with these young guns, because they are really cool. They are really, like, I want to see more Hangman. I want to see more Goose, and I want to see all these guys, but all these guys and girls. But I feel like if it happens, it will be those people, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd like to see more Rooster. Miles Teller, I think, was
he's
really
awesome.
good in this film.
Yeah, he's awesome.
I mean, I'm not hanging out for a sequel, but who knows, Hugo? Like, how does Hollywood work? Gosh, like, imagine if we did that.
We're gonna do like Indiana Jones. They're gonna de-age Tom Cruise, and they're gonna like this. Like the rumors are, like he's gonna de-age him practically. Yeah.
Well, maybe it's set in heaven. There you go, Hugo.
And he's dead. He's really dead.
Tom Cruise heaven. All right. Well, I think on that note, we should wrap it up. But it's been really fun chatting about a film that we have not much visual effects info for, but we have talked for about an hour. Hugo,
hopefully people can write. Hopefully people can write how wrong we were.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. I don't think we're wrong, but I hope we are, and I hope people write out. And a lot of people do that. A lot of people comment and leave comments sometimes about specific things on the production, which is awesome. Guys, keep that coming. That's amazing.
Please.
Yes.
Yeah, we would love that. So thank you to Hugo. Thanks to all the sponsors, Patreon supporters, and people who like and subscribe us on YouTube and other podcast platforms. Hugo, always fun to talk with you.
Yep. Amazing. Thank you so much, Ian. I'll see you later.
Thanks, guys. Bye.